Good morning, Joy Felicity here, and I am your host of Toro Prime Time. Today, we would like to focus our story on Huntington's disease, since May is Huntington's Disease Awareness Month. We think it's important to recognize and bring awareness to Huntington's disease. Huntington's disease is a fatal degenerative neurological disorder which affects 5 to 10 of every 100,000 individuals. In today's segment, we have two individuals and their families sharing their experiences of living with Huntington's disease. We are here with Hope Lively, who lives in Henderson, Nevada. Her mom has recently been diagnosed with Huntington's disease. Let's hear her story.
Hi, my name is Hope, and I've never heard of Huntington's disease before until my mom was diagnosed. I got tested and found out that I do have Huntington's. Since that diagnosis, I started working with an occupational therapist to establish a daily routine and identify supports that can help me in the workplace and at home. It is important to me to see an occupational therapist early on so that I am better prepared for when symptoms start occurring. I want to remain as independent as I can for as long as possible. I'm still young and feel that there are things I want to accomplish.
We will also take a look into another individual whose life has been affected by this disorder. Sunny Day is a health graduate student also from Henderson, Nevada. Let's hear her story.
My name is Sunny, and I am 26 years old, and I have recently been tested for Huntington's disease. I was always good at school and sports, and now I can barely remember the simple things. I lose focus very easily, and my hands have chorea. You can't tell right now because I'm holding onto the microphone, but they're spontaneous movements that I cannot control. So I usually have to keep a pencil in my hand to mask these movements, and it makes me feel really frustrated because I don't have control over these movements no matter how hard I try to resist it.
Sunny has agreed to let us follow along on her visit with the doctor today. Can you tell us how you're feeling today?
Well, I know that my mom and my aunt have Huntington, so I hope that I can get an answer today. I noticed that these symptoms, they're not going away, but a part of me still does have hope that it's just chance. I went back and forth my whole life on getting tested since I knew that I did have a 50% chance of having the disorder, but I didn't want to accept the possibility until I knew for sure. Once I started getting symptoms, I had a bad feeling I was the next person in my family that potentially could have this disorder.
We have Sunny's doctor here to explain the next steps of managing her new diagnosis.
I have known Sunny her whole life and am very sad that I had to give her this diagnosis. But I am able to refer her to an occupational therapist, social worker, psychologist, physical therapist, and eventually I will refer her to a speech language pathologist when she experiences signs of dysphagia or trouble swallowing. Sunny is in the early stages of the disorder, so unfortunately her symptoms will progress from here, and it's important to have a multidisciplinary approach to her care to ensure that she is able to continue doing the things she wants to do and needs to do.
So many of you may be wondering, what exactly is Huntington's disease? Well, we have a Toro University OT scientist here to explain.
What's up, OT nerds? So, today we're going to be talking about Huntington's disease, also called HD. HD is an inherited neurodegenerative disorder characterized by cognitive, motor, and psychiatric disturbances. HD is associated with deterioration of the corpus striatum within the basal ganglia. So first, let me give you a brief overview of the anatomy. The corpus striatum is made up of both caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus. And the lentiform nucleus is made up of both putamen and what we call the globus pallidus. The caudate nucleus here is linked to cognitive and emotional function, and the lentiform nucleus here is made up of the putamen and the globus pallidus. Collectively, they are the corpus striatum. With Huntington's disease, we see progressive deterioration and atrophy in these areas. The corpus striatum is important for motor control, and as these areas deteriorate, we start to see what we call chorea, which is a rapid, involuntary, irregular movements. With deterioration, we also start to see a decrease in the neurotransmitter GABA, as well as acetylcholine and substance P neurotransmitter. Then, over time, we progressively see a loss of the frontal cortex, globus pallidus, and the thalamus.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more information on this disorder.
With tetrabenazine, Sunny Day can do all of her meaningful occupations. Now that you have an idea of what is going on in the brain, let me bring in my OT friend who can explain how OT works clinically with individuals who have Huntington's disease at each stage. So, Huntington's disease is divided into 5 stages according to the Unified Huntington's Disease Rating Scale. The first stage is called the presymptomatic stage, and this is somewhat of a new stage that has been added since the advent of genetic testing. It is incredibly important during this stage to monitor symptoms. Typically, in this stage, we see early cognitive symptoms such as forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, as well as emotional and behavioral changes.
With occupational therapy, what we normally do during this early stage is establish daily routines, checklists, and task analysis to break up large tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. By establishing these routines early on in the progression of Huntington's, our clients will be able to have structure and support for home and work activities.
The second stage is the early stage of the disease process, and individuals at this stage typically continue to experience increased difficulty concentrating, emotional and behavioral changes, maintaining work performance, irritability, or depression. During this early stage, chorea often begins in the hands.
At this stage, we want to make sure our clients with Huntington's are maintaining social contacts and accessing community support services. We can provide modifications for dressing tasks as well as modifications to the client's home environment to lessen the impact of chorea seen in the hands. Some of these modifications include clothing without small fasteners and shoes with Velcro. Home modifications include built-up handles on utensils, shower benches, grab bars, and elimination of area rugs. An OT can establish a home exercise program to promote flexibility and endurance. It is in the client's best interest if the home exercise program can be incorporated into the client's daily routine. At this stage, oculomotor control is also impacted. This means that the client will no longer be able to drive safely, which can impact the client's community mobility.
During the third and fourth stage of the disease, cognitive and emotional abilities continue to deteriorate, and individuals typically experience memory disturbances and difficulty making decisions. Psychological issues, including anxiety, depression, and irritability, become an increasing concern as well. Motor problems exacerbate and continue to get worse throughout the middle stages. Since chorea progresses to a more severe level, clients typically require an increased caloric consumption of somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 calories.
It's important to ensure that meaningful habits and routines are established at this stage in order to ensure the client is able to continue to participate in the occupations they enjoy. At this stage, clients with Huntington's have difficulties in mental calculations, sequencing, and memory tasks, which put them at risk for losing their job. Sometimes we will work with a client on developing verbal and problem-solving strategies. If necessary, we complete a worksite evaluation and make suggestions for modifications. If the individual has to resign from their job due to an exacerbation of symptoms, it is the role of the OT to help promote engagement and purposeful activities. Psychological issues such as suicide and depression are a major concern with these clients. Individuals with Huntington's may feel a sense of guilt and use denial as a coping mechanism. As OTs, we can provide coping strategies to help with these thoughts and feelings. Balance becomes a safety concern and requires activities such as dressing, grooming, and bathing to be done while seated. At this stage, the client may require a walker or wheelchair for ambulation. My role is to make sure that the wheelchair is properly fitted to meet the client's needs, especially with chorea. Fatigue is also exacerbated in the middle stages. An OT can educate the client and provide energy conservation techniques such as rest breaks.
The final stage of HD usually presents as a complete lack of motor control and little to no functional capacity. The client at this stage typically requires 24-hour care and is dependent on others to complete self-care tasks. The dramatic loss in cognitive abilities leads to dysarthria, which is loss of speech, and dementia. Behavioral outbursts are common in the late stages as well.
In the final stages of Huntington's, we utilize splinting techniques to minimize contractures. Clients at this stage often experience dysphagia. Feeding difficulties are addressed in order to reduce the risk of aspiration. During this stage, the client is typically experiencing dementia. An OT can introduce strategies to aid in the client's ability to recall information and tasks. Our job in helping clients throughout all stages of Huntington's is centered around ensuring the client is able to control their environment to the best of their abilities despite the progressive loss of function.
Thanks for sharing your story, Sunny and Hope. This is Joy Felicity, signing off. Till next time, my OT peeps.